Disclaimer. The following may contain decisions of violence or graphic senses. Viewer discretion is advised. Over at the convenience store, Cassian waits his turn at the checkout. There, he sees a book called The Priest of Corinth, a book that he appears to be familiar with. As the cashier is scanning through Cassian's things, an old man interrupts and asks the cashier if he can get some paper recycling bags. This prompts the cashier to quickly aid the old man in finding what he is looking for. However, as the cashier is leaving to do so, he bumps into Cassian, causing the two to look at each other in the eye. The cashier quickly apologizes and goes about his business. Meanwhile, Cassian looks at the cashier with suspicious eyes. Later, Cassian leaves the store when suddenly Moros approaches him. He begins to reveal to Cassian that the cashier was a villain, but before he can do that, Cassian explains that he is already aware of that. As it turns out, Cassian started feeling suspicious when the cashier's eyes gave it away. At that moment, Cassian quickly realized that the cashier was not completely himself. But one thing Cassian is not sure of is that if it's Bloodrain, the priest of Corinth, or not. That book is a classic novel about the vampires. In the novel, Bloodrain says, "Now you will die inside of me." That's a quote that sounded familiar to Cassian back at the store, and then he realized that it was from this novel. Moros is amazed that Cassian can remember so much so accurately, but that's only because he read a lot during his time in the orphanage. He then decides to go and see if the card he drew turned out to be a joker or not. As the cashier from the store begins to leave, Cassian starts to follow him without him knowing. He notices that the cashier is not going the way of Seohwa Art School and begins wondering where he is headed. It appears that Cassian has realized that something fishy is going on. All of a sudden, a huge truck starts coming toward the same old man earlier from the convenience store while he is crossing the road. Cassian is very quick to notice as he uses his villain power to save the old man, the car coming to a stop, continuing to tend to the old man, quickly turning back, and the cashier is nowhere to be seen, pissing off Cassian. As things calm down, Moros expresses how he did not think that Cassian would turn into a villain in a public place. However, Cassian explains that he had no other way as all the doors to the rooftop were closed. He then begins to swallow a piece of magic stone, realizing that he should have done so sooner. He then asks Moros to run a system check on him to see where he stands in terms of skill. After performing a check, it comes to Cassian's notice that he has gained 2 more skills, Shadow Hide and Shadow Dash. These skills are purely obtainable because he raised his magic points. He then recalls that when he was Psyker, the only possible way to get new skills was to go through hardcore training. But he is taken aback by the fact that he only has 470 magic points even after consuming 3 magic stones. To clear any confusion, Moros explains to Cassian that this happens because his body has adjusted to the magic stones. He discloses to Cassian that the next time he takes a magic stone, he will get even fewer magic points eventually, to a point where the magic points will barely increase, no matter how many magic stones are consumed. This makes perfect sense for Cassian, as he understands that if this was possible, then everyone would just be getting stronger by consuming mana stones again and again. It is at this moment Cassian realizes that he cannot depend solely on the magic stones to get stronger, and that he should find other ways of getting more powerful. Cassian then asks Moros to run a check on Bloodrain as well, leading Moros to remind him that he cannot use this skill more than 3 times. After the check, Cassian notices a skill called Blood Step that Bloodrain possesses and wonders if he used that skill the night before. He then discovers that Bloodrain can mind control and hypnotize as well. Somewhere else, it looks like a hospital. Ominous noise is heard at the back of a room. In a room, red Kool-Aid on the ground. There are 3 people looking at the red figure, looking all demonic. Bring those children to me. Later that night, at the hospital. Nan sits in the room of her friend, who is still unconscious, going through her phone. She wonders who the guy who saved her was, but she can't find him in the villain database. Suddenly, the doctors who come in unannounced tell her that they have to run some terribly urgent and definitely important tests on Miss Anne, the patient, and even invite Non to come with them. Doctors looking mad suspicious. Meanwhile, Cassian is honing his new skills, and to his delight and surprise, he can use two at once. Dissolving into the shadows, also known as shadow hide, and speeding up at times thanks to the shadow dash. Cassian appears to move much more smoothly now. However, Moros soon warns Cassian not to be pleased with himself and reminds him that he is spending too much energy unwisely. Moros further advises Cassian to make sure to spend his energy wisely in the future. Meanwhile, Cassian is seen frowning over Moros lecturing him once again. Suddenly, a beep occurs on Cassian's device, and he becomes aware of the villain's location. Luckily, it happens to be near Cassian's correct location, and he seems sure that Blood Rain will be heading for the hospital where the two girls are. Moreover, Cassian is pleased that he managed to hook that GPS tracker to the cashier. He then begins to think how he should have expected the villain to come back and capture the victims, something that he has already failed once. With the new skill of passing through walls, Cassian hops and rushes to leave, stating that they should hurry, hoping that he can reach the hospital before things go bad. Back at the hospital, Non, along with her friend on a gurney, goes down to Ground Zero in the parking lot, where the doctors start pushing her into the ambulance for some reason. The girl wonders what is actually going on. She is then told that very important tests cannot be done at the hospital and that they need to move to a well-equipped place. The doctor then continues his comment by saying that it will be a test of her loyalty. However, that phrase is no longer finished by the doctor, but by Blood Rain, appearing out of nowhere behind Non's back. Non stays fearless and immediately begins to shout at the people who are in the vicinity. She tells them to run as fast as possible due to the appearance of a villain. Unbeknownst to her, she doesn't realize that she and her unconscious friend are the only ones left sheltered in the car. The villain begins approaching Non, who stands there frozen with uncontrollable terror. The villain says that these are his loyal puppies and that they respond only to his voice. He then tells Non that he can make her his puppy as well, but decides not to. Non secretly presses the emergency pager again, this time without shouting in his face. The villain sees the courageous act of Non and realizes that is getting smarter. He sees that she has overcome fear and terror, which also happens to be one of the few emotions that humans feel on an instinctual level. He believes that these characteristics of Non make her his perfect bride. Suddenly, a voice comes from darkness, calling out the villain for spewing nonsense. It appears that Cassian has arrived, and he immediately orders Non to sit down as soon as he counts to 3. In the next second, while the villain only has time to think about how this kid got to him, Cassian dashes toward Blood Rain, reaching his face with his boot. The villain is powerful, so one such move doesn't really affect him that much. Cassian then keeps attacking, and the villain continues to dodge his attack while cursing Cassian at the same time. He even attempts to counterattack, which then turns out to be completely ineffective. This prompts Cassian to continue attacking the villain when suddenly he remembers that he has another basic skill that he hasn't used on Cassian yet. The villain's eyes begin to glow bright red, and he moves too close to Cassian's face in an attempt to subdue his consciousness by hypnotizing him. But it doesn't come out well, allowing Cassian to stab the villain in the face using his claws. What's good, you guys? I am taking a break from this series and bringing out another 1-5 for a different manhwa. If any suggestions, leave them in the comments below. Hopefully this one was a bit better than last recap. Anyways, take care, my people. Now for the little recorded bit. If we can get the amount of likes shown here, I will upload next episode as soon as I can. Please leave any feedback on the comments below. So with that, I want to say, thanks for watching. Hoped you enjoyed. See you guys later.